Everybody, and welcome to the College Heights live stream. Thanks for joining us today, whether it's morning for you or afternoon or evening or it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever it is, we'd love to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Quaddy, one of the ministers on staff, and it is great to have you with us here today. One of the things that we want to do is to make sure that we are able to engage each other as best as we can, even over this live stream. The way we want you to do that is through our chat. Now, you might be watching this on YouTube, on your TV, kind of like my family and I do, but we also want you to be able to engage with us here. And so if you go to our app, which is on Android or Apple at College Heights, or go to our website, chjoplin.org, you can find how to access this so you can be able to dialogue with us. It's a great place to put prayer requests, have Dale Harrington say hi to you, or to be able to find out more information as we go through the service about what's going on. And through that chat, you can put down prayer requests, and you can put other things that are going on today, and we'd love to be able to engage with you there. You can also put down your prayer requests, and you can be praying for those or put those on the wall, or it's also a place that you can text prayer, any prayer requests that you have, to 417-208-9774, which is located on your screen. Or you can also just invite people to engage the service with you. There might be people in your life that really need this today. And so to let them know that there's a place for them to be able to worship alongside others today. And so just click that invite button and invite somebody to join us today. One announcement that we do want to let you guys know about is we are doing a survey to kind of find out through this transition back into the getting together in groups. We want your opinion. We want your thoughts on what you're comfortable with. And so we would ask that you'd fill that survey out. It takes about 3 minutes. If you haven't done that already, you can access that on our website or our Facebook page. Please do that. But more importantly, we're just here to worship and to learn together about how God is faithful to us through all the situations that we're going on and that He's in control. And so as we worship, will you just pray with me? Lord, I want to thank you for the opportunity that we have, Lord, to come together, to worship, to even be in this room in a digital space together. And so I pray that you will guide our hearts as we sing today. In your name we pray. Amen.
One word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. That's right. Just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Yes. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe it. There's nothing that our God can't do. It's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. that you can do. I believe, God. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Yeah, I will believe, come on, for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree that there's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. Hey! There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that Jesus can't do. No, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, I believe it. Yes, I believe, God. There's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that Jesus can't do. Oh. Amen, amen, amen. Well, it's good to be back here in this room at the church, and we miss you all today. I wish we could all be together in this room worshiping together. I'm really glad that this is one step closer, that we're on our way there. We got to sing a new song last week called Another in the Fire. And just before we go into that song today, I just want to highlight this moment, just calm our hearts and just prepare our hearts to worship from our homes, our living rooms, our workplaces, wherever you're at. I really love this song for this season in particular, because a lot of us are walking through some hard things. A lot of us feel like we're in a fire or we're in a storm, and maybe we're struggling, maybe there's just some tough stuff going on. And a lot of times it feels like there's nothing that no one can help, that there's nothing we can do to fix it, even though we want that. But one thing I do know is true is that God is with you in it. God is with all of us in all the things that we're walking through and all the tough things. And I love this song because it highlights that even in the past trials of life, God was with us. We remember those. We bring them to the front of our memory. And that's when we have the capacity to see that God is with us today, present, now, even if you're walking through a trial. And because we know that God's with us in the past and that God is with us now, that increases our faith, and we get to declare and know that God will be with us in the future. So if you're walking through some fire today, or there's something going on, I want to encourage you and just share with you that God is with you. Even when it doesn't seem like it, even when it doesn't feel like it, He's with you. And maybe you've been through something in the past where you know now, in hindsight, that God was with you the whole time. Well, today, just trust Him. Believe Him that He's with you today. And even as we look forward to the future, no matter what's coming our way, we know that God will be with us again. So with that faith, with that trust today, let's continue to worship. Let's sing this song together and just declare our faith that God is with us, no matter what we're going through.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fight, standing next to me. There was another in the water, holding back the sea. And should I ever need reminder of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There was another in the fight. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters, and I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I will bow to the things of this world. 'Cause I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, he's holding back the sea. Should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that floats no body, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, 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 I can see the light in the darkness. As the darkness bows to head, I can hear the roar in the heavens. As the space between wasted, I can feel the ground shake beneath us. As the prison walls cave in, 'cause nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all these things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. And I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the sea. Should I ever need reminding, how good you've been to me? the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
As we move into a time of communion, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, go to your kitchen and grab something that you can substitute for communion. It's okay if it's not certified. Some chips or some, bread of some kind, tortilla, whatever it is, and grab that and bring that back and to share with your family. And so it's crazy being here on this stage. We're recording this together, and it's one of the first times I've kind of been here really for a while. And I think back about kind of that second, third week of March. What were you doing? What was going on with you that second or third week of March? I remember I was getting ready to go on a spring break trip with a bunch of college students down in New Orleans to do service projects all week. My family was all in school, and my son was running track, and I had a daughter who was doing piano, and another daughter who had just started taking gymnastics lessons. And then within a week, just gone. Everything was paused. Everything's been changing. And we found some type of new normal, some type of new rhythm in the middle of this, but everything's been different. I'll never forget the first Sunday I was watching an online service sitting on my couch with my family, streaming it. And I looked outside my window, and spring was still being held on by winter. And my backyard, nothing was really green or vibrant yet. And I kept waiting. When is spring going to hit? And when I look at it now, it's green and it's good and the trees have bloomed and everything's pretty great, but I had a tough time noticing the progression each week. When you're in the middle of something, it's so hard to see a bigger picture of what's happening. We've all lost something. Many of us have lost a lot of things in all of this. Our normalcy, our rhythms, our patterns, our jobs, our relationships, a sense of safety and security, whatever it's been. We've lost it. And we know in the back of our minds that God is faithful, that He's constantly with us, taking care of us and providing for us. It just doesn't always happen as quickly as we want it to. And we look outside and we expect to see things change more rapidly than what they are. But don't take that and miss the point of God's promise to be faithful to us in bigger ways, in bigger things. Because when I do, I look outside and I see it's green and it's vibrant and it's perfect. I just didn't see it week to week as fast as I wanted to see it happen. God is faithful. And just for these next few moments, would you reflect on that? Maybe not in the ways that you've wanted God to be faithful in the quick moments, but over this period of time, starting in mid-March, leading us up to now, how has God been faithful to you? Reflect on that for a few moments. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, He took the bread, He broke it, and He said, "This is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Later, He took the cup. He said, "This cup represents the blood of the new covenant which is shed for you. do this also in remembrance of me. Let's pray. Lord, I want to thank you for your faithfulness, not just in the moment, but over the long term. The faithfulness that you have given us, Lord, not just in the things that we see or the things that we ask for, Lord, the faithfulness that you have given us by sending your Son to die for us on the cross, to give us hope beyond this earth, beyond our moments. We get to spend eternity with you. May we never forget that. May we never forget your faithfulness. In your name we pray. Amen. As we move into a time of offering, we want to thank you guys for the generosity that you continue to show the church. We continue to use those funds to further the kingdom, not just here in Joplin, but what's happening elsewhere in the world. We love the Dollar Club. If you're not familiar with that, we just ask everybody to give $1 above and beyond their normal offering during this time period, and then we put that into a special fund that we can use to bless our community in unique ways. And so thank you for engaging with us there. If you'd like to give, you can go online to our website at chjoplin.donate at any point, or you can also just mail in a check to our church at 4311 East Newman Road, Joplin, Missouri, 64801. Here's more details about that.
At College Heights, we wanted to make sure that giving online is extremely secure and very simple. So if you'd like to donate, go to chjoplin.org/donate, or at the top of our webpage, you can click Donate. From there, we'll redirect you to our secure online giving platform. Enter how much your gift is, and if this is a one-time gift, thank you so much for giving. This website also allows you to set up recurring gifts, which will allow you to choose how often per month and which day of the week your donation is given. Then enter your first and your last name and your email so that a receipt can be sent to you as soon as your gift is submitted. You'll note that you're able to give through a card or by routing your bank account directly. If you have an Apple device, you can set up Apple Pay as well. One thing that we really like about this site is that you're able to cover fees or see at least what it costs to do this. So routing through your bank costs a lot less than paying with a card, making sure that every dollar given does a lot more ministry. Click Give and you'll be sent a receipt thanking you for your gift. But one great thing is you're also able to create a login on Tithely, which will allow you to monitor your giving throughout the year. At College Heights, we pray that every dollar given does more ministry than we could ever imagine.
During times of disruption in our lives, even when we can't see it or are asleep to it, we believe God is working.
Hello, welcome. My name's Huffer. I'm the lead minister here at College Heights Christian Church, and it is great to have you all with us. I'm glad you just heard about our Dollar Club. Even this last week, there's a single mom in our church family that was having a hard time making rent. And because of your generosity, we as a church, through the Dollar Club, were able to help her pay her rent this month. And that's you. That's you giving just a little bit extra during this really tough season in order to help those that are just really struggling, that are having some economic frustrations or downfalls or crisis. So thank you for giving and sacrificing above and beyond in order to make a difference in the world around us and beyond us. Man, if you're new to College Heights and you want to learn more and get connected and maybe say, hey, I'm here and I'd like to get to be known, then you can text this word welcome to 417-281-3974. We have an Amazon gift card we'd like to get to you and just say thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. If you would like to get to know other people that are part of our church and not just someone, on stage talking, but like real life people, not that I'm a fake person, but other people from our church, you can join our Facebook group where they talk about things that have to do with just life and family and how to live life in the midst of a pandemic. And so you can join that Facebook group by texting the word Facebook to 417-281-3974. Today, I wanted to start off with basically this phrase I heard in high school that I don't know if I agreed with when I first heard it. And it goes something like this. Perception is reality. When I first heard that, I thought, that's not true. Your perception isn't reality. Reality is reality. But let me flesh that out a little bit. Look at this picture. Look at this drawing of a rabbit. Take a look at it. It's cute. Small little mouth and nose, the eyes perked back, and the eyes focused, scanning the landscape, just looking for any kind of predator that it might find. You can picture the rest of the rabbit, can't you? Sitting back on its hind legs, every square inch of her body on high alert. See, at first pass, this is a nice little drawing of a rabbit. But then let me throw a wrench in it by asking you this question. Are you sure it's a rabbit? Because perhaps it's a duck. Give it a second. Those ears are going to turn into a beak. And instead of seeing a rabbit nervously looking to the right, there's a duck looking up to the sun to the left. Are you confused? You see, this is what life does to us. And this is what this series, when God works a night shift, it's what this series is all about. We think life is like this, that the world is like that we're heading in this direction, that we are going a certain way, that all of a sudden my worldview, my reality, everything that I've been focused on is completely stripped away. It's just gone. And what I thought was a rabbit is suddenly a duck. I was going to stay home as a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and then my loving husband left me for his mistress. Rabbit to duck. I was going to school to be a doctor, but then I couldn't pass organic chemistry again and again and again. I had to totally change my career path. Rabbit to duck. I started this year thinking I was going to get promoted, and instead I got furloughed. Rabbit to duck. What do you do when you find yourself confused in the chaos? Like, what do you do? You see, the same was true for this woman in the Bible named Ruth. See, Ruth, her life was totally disrupted by causes that were out of her control. Yet what is fascinating about her story is that when she's confused by the chaos around her, she commits to the constants. Say this with me. I want you to say these words and put them up on the screen right here. You can see them. Say these words with me. When you are confused in the chaos, commit to the constants. For this is what Ruth does. Let me show you a little bit what Ruth does in this story. It begins with a famine in the land of Judah. And during this famine, there's a man named Elimelech who takes his family and he takes them to a foreign land called Moab. Now, Moab is a neighboring country. And in Moab, he's going there to kind of escape the ramifications of famine in the land of Judah. It's like going, a snowbird going to your beach house for the summer. Yeah, this is not some 3-month walkabout. This is a decade living in exile. And during this decade, Elimelech's sons marry Moabite women. One marries a woman named Orpah, and the other one marries a woman named Ruth. And here they are, this beautiful little extended family living their lives in a little house on the prairie. But then in this terrible succession of events, Elimelech and his 2 sons die, leaving 3 widows behind, one of them being Ruth. You see, in this culture, to become a widow is the fast track to poverty and or potentially even prostitution. And so you have Naomi, the now matriarch of the family, deciding to go back to the homeland, and she urges her daughter-in-laws, both Orpah and Ruth, hey, stay in your homeland. Stay in Moab. Go back to your families. Don't come with me to Judah, because we're most certainly going to just face death and destruction. Well, one of these daughter-in-laws, Orpah, she accepts the invitation, but Ruth rejects it. Ruth says, no, I'm going with you. And what I can't help but ask is, how could Ruth, in the midst of the confusion and the chaos, commit to the constant of choosing Naomi to go with her back to Judah? You see, for Ruth, one of her constants was this: blood is thicker than water. My Papa Whitaker, he used to always talk about how important family was. He says, boys, there's nothing more important than family. You got to put family above everything else. It's what makes the last several decades of TV sitcoms, what makes them all pretty predictable. They're all about this family that's pretty dysfunctional, right? I mean, that's pretty much every sitcom from All in the Family to Modern Family. You have this family unit, they're pretty dysfunctional, and that's what makes it kind of funny. And yet, as you watch the show, you see that their dysfunction is their dysfunction, and yet they're still loyal to each other because they're family. And that's what makes this not just funny, but accessible, because every single one of us were born into some kind of family, to some kind of dysfunction. And honestly, we realize that, like Ruth, when you are confused in the chaos of life around you, who are the people that show up? That cousin that you haven't heard from in years, they're going to come help you move. That aunt, that uncle, that grandparent that's going to send you a card in the mail when you're in need or on your birthday. You see, when you're confused in the chaos, commit to the constant. That the blood is thicker than water. So Naomi and Ruth, they moved back to Naomi's hometown called Bethlehem. And at the very beginning of chapter 2, Ruth jumps straight into the barley fields to begin her work. So in Judah, there was this law. And it said, as people would farm their land, that any crop that you dropped on the ground, you were to leave there. You weren't to pick it back up. Or you were to only collect up to a certain point, but at the very edge of the field and the extremities of your property, that you left those crops there also. And this was built in to God's economy for his people to help provide for the poor in the land. It was part of the rights of the poor in God's monarchy that he had established. And so here's Ruth taking advantage of kind of the built-in laws and the protection of those that were in need. She would go in the midst of being confronted with a chaos, living in a foreign land with abject poverty staring her straight in the face. She gets up, she gets off her rear, and goes out and takes advantage of all of these resources given to her. You see, in the field she goes to, it belongs to a man named Boaz. And you see, Boaz, Ruth catches his eye. He's like, hey, who's that in the field? Starts asking questions. Oh, that's Ruth, That's Naomi's daughter-in-law. She's a Moabite woman that moved from Moab to Judah with Naomi. And he says, hey, why don't you work with my workers, and they will be watching over you, and you can go alongside them, and you will be under their protective care. And he sends Ruth back to Naomi, just full of arms, full of grain. You see, when Naomi finds out who he is, whose field that Ruth had gone to, she's floored. She says this in verse 20. That man, he is our close relative. He's one of our guardian redeemers. See, this means that Boaz, he can kind of step in and provide an heir for Naomi and Ruth, for Elimelech's family, for his line, for his family line, and provide an heir for them so that they could have someone that the land could go to. See, in the confusion of the chaos, Ruth committed to one of the constants, that not only is blood thicker than water, but here's the other one, that the harder you work, the luckier you get. Have you heard that one before? The harder you work, the luckier you get. She didn't wallow in self-pity. She didn't escape through numbing practices. She didn't wait on that mysterious them or they to fix her problems. She did what she could, and it took commitment to the constant. That hard work pays off in the end. Well, the story doesn't end there. Though Naomi, as Ruth is working in the field, Naomi begins to formulate a plan that has the potential to be the big break that both Ruth and Naomi are looking for. And this is what these two vulnerable widows, this is what they need, this big break. She tells Ruth to go to Boaz's threshing floor. This is kind of like a barn, and you had kind of almost like a porch cover, and there's like this kind of wind tunnel where the wind comes through, and you take all the barley harvest that you've collected, and they would toss it up into the wind. It'd blow away the chaff, the stuff that you don't want, and the real good stuff would fall back to the ground. And that's where they would do a lot of the harvesting. And Boaz had a threshing floor like every other good farmer at the time. And so Ruth goes to the threshing floor after the big party, where they've celebrated and they drank and they ate and they're passing out because they've celebrated way into the night because they're so excited that the harvest was so good. And she goes in, and Boaz is asleep, and she goes and she lays down at his feet at the threshing floor. And when he wakes up, he's startled. He's like, whoa, there's a woman at my feet. And this is their interaction. This is their dialogue. Listen to what is said between Boaz and Ruth in this moment in the middle of the night. Ruth chapter 3, verse 9. Who are you? He asked. I'm your servant, Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. Man, what a risk for her to go to Boaz in the middle of the night, not knowing if he would accept her proposal. And yet he does. Like this man of power, he takes a risk and he goes and he sticks his neck out for this woman, this vulnerable woman in weakness who's facing really a tough situation. Why? Like, why does Boaz say, yes, I see you. Thank you for pursuing me. I'm going to join you in this venture that you're on. I think it's because of the next words that come out of his mouth. Listen to this. In verse 11, it says this: all the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Beautiful karma, right? That's what we see. In the confusion of the chaos, Ruth commits to those constants. Not only that blood's thicker than water, not just that the harder you work, the luckier that you get, but this also, that what goes around comes around. When you put out good behavior, when you stand for justice, when you care for the needy, you're a nice and kind person, that these things tend to kind of come back to you. The alternative is also kind of true, right? It reminds me of that old TV show, My Name is Earl kind of thing, that when you put out evil and injustice in the world, that these tend to come back to you in negative ways. It's why we celebrate when Voldemort is killed and when Rudy is lifted up on the shoulders of his teammates. And Ruth, in the confusion of the chaos, committed to the constants of simply being a good person, like putting good out in the world, and it worked out to her benefit because Boaz responds to her request by himself. Boaz, in the confusion and the chaos, committing to the constants. Chapter 4, he moves from not just a story about women to a story about men, from those in need to those in power, and Boaz runs the show. Apparently, the one little glitch in Naomi's matchmaking plans is that there is one man who's a closer relative to Elimelech than Boaz. There's a closer guardian redeemer that we've got to kind of figure out in the story. So Boaz calls a town hall meeting at the gates. He calls that closer relative to come to this meeting with him. And then he calls all the elders of the town to come. And it's kind of like a public event. Everybody's going to go see, hey, look, there's a big old town hall meeting. What's going on? They're all going to go kind of check out the big gathering that's happening at the gates. And he tells the man about Elimelech's land. And that this man, he goes, you actually have first right to the land instead of me. And the man jumps at the opportunity. He's ready to take it and potentially expand his family business and fill up his 401k. But then Boaz brings up at just the right time, the benefit of the guardian redeemer comes with a responsibility. And the responsibility is to care for these two widows, Naomi, by taking Ruth as his wife. Well, when the man hears that, he backs away and goes, you know what? Hey, that's too high of a price. That's too big of a commitment for me. And so he backs off, and Boaz is able to step in and care for these women like he said he would. What I want to show you is this, that though that he does this meeting at the town gate the very next day. It's like the first thing in the morning, and Naomi knew he would. She says this in Ruth 3:18, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man, for Boaz, he will not rest until the matter is settled today. You see, where confusion and the chaos could potentially dominate, Boaz commits to the constant of that old saying, first things first. This was his duty. This was his responsibility, and he was loyal to Ruth and Naomi in the midst of their chaos by taking care of his duty first thing. My granddad, he would always ask me, hey, when are you going to practice your trumpet, Si? And I would say, oh, sometime tomorrow. He says, I don't know, I've never heard of sometime before. Is that after 3 p.m. or is it before 6 p.m.? And I would laugh and I would say, okay, I'm going to practice at 4 p.m. He wanted me to schedule the time. This is my duty and this is when I'm going to get it done. He would always say these words. He would say, pay now, play later, or play now, pay later. And the meaning was this: pay now means take care of what you're responsible for. Fulfill your duty. Do the hard thing now. And then you will get the benefits of doing that hard thing later. You're going to reap the benefits of that discipline, reap the benefits of having taken care of the hard thing already, the boring thing, the non-fun thing, so that later you get to play, you get to have fun. But the opposite's also true. If you play now, if you slough off what you should be doing and you play now, then what results is this, that you're going to pay for it later. Pay now, play later, or play now, pay later. First things first. You see, in the midst of the chaos, the confusion of the chaos, you got to commit to the constant of taking care of your duties, putting first things first. When you're confused in the chaos, commit to those constants, blood's thicker than water. That the harder you work, the luckier you get. And then what goes around comes around, and first things first. And the result of these constants is seen at the end of the book. You can check it out in chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer." Isn't that a great story? I love that story of Ruth and Boaz and Naomi. It's so applicable for what we're going through. Because all of us, we've had our lives disrupted, haven't we? Like Ruth, we are confused in the chaos of living life in this fallen world, confused by sin, by brokenness, by shame, by abuse, by COVID-19, by an economic downfall. And what's true for Ruth is true for us. When you're confused in the chaos, commit to those constants of, family. Blood's thicker than water, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. And the hard work and having a good work ethic and what goes around comes around. It's good to be a good person, have good morals. And first things first, you got to take care of your duty. Well, your responsibility. Yeah, let me leave those 4 up on the screen for a second. And let me ask you this question. When you read those 4 things, these 4 old American proverbs we've been saying for decades, are those really constants? Like in every chaos and every season and every storm and when things are so confusing, are those things that you know are always true no matter what? Perhaps you thought so. But life, in whatever way, has totally shaken those constants, those hard rocks that you thought were hard rocks. It's shaken them up so much so that they aren't so constant to you. And what you thought was a rabbit is now a duck. Maybe your family let you down. Your mom left. Your dad withheld affection. And you found yourself alone. Rabbit to duck. Perhaps you thought if you worked harder, you would catch a break and you could finally dig yourself out of the hole that you found yourself in. But an unplanned pregnancy and dropping out of college and working multiple jobs, all it got you was debt, burnout, and anxiety about next week's rent. Work ethic, please. Rabbit to duck. Maybe you believe that being a good person would pay off. But no matter how good you were, you still got laid off, you still got dumped, you still got cheated, you still got sick. Rabbit to duck. Or maybe you always committed to fulfilling your responsibilities to others, and yet it seems that always no one fulfilled them to you. Rabbit to duck. What happens when those core tenets of your life and of your worldview that you thought were those secure things that you could always depend upon? What happens when you actually can't depend upon them? What happens when actually life hits you and it smacks you in the face and it strips away everything that you thought that you could rely upon, everything that you thought was firm and a strong foundation for your life? What do? When you are confused in the chaos? What do you do when your constants, they're not so constant anymore? See, there's a clarification I want to make when it comes to this pandemic. We're not all in the same boat. We aren't. Like some are essential, others not so essential. Some are vulnerable and the most at risk, others have very little health risk. Some were prepared financially, others were crushed. We are not in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. And whatever boat you are in this storm, you have to realize this, that every single one of us, we have all had our normal disrupted, and what was once a rabbit is now a duck. So when you're confused in the chaos, what do you do? What do you do? C.S. Lewis, in his book, The Problem of Pain, he talks about, he really just kind of riffs on what does it mean when pain just hits you in this life. When those constant things that you thought were constant aren't so constant anymore. And this is what he says. Take a listen to this. I heard this as I was riding my bike this week, and it just wrecked me. My own experience is something like this, he says. I'm progressing along the path of life in my ordinary, contentedly fallen and godless condition, absorbed in a merry meeting with my friends for the morrow, or a bit of work that tickles my vanity, when suddenly a stab of abdominal pain that threatens serious disease, or perhaps it's not that, perhaps it's a headline in the newspaper that threatens all of us with destruction, sends this whole pack of cards tumbling down. And at first I'm overwhelmed that all of my happinesses look like broken toys. But then slowly and reluctantly, bit by bit, I try to bring myself into the frame of mind that I should be in at all times. And perhaps, by God's grace, I succeed. And for a day or two, I become a creature consciously dependent on God and drawing his strength from the right sources. But the moment the threat is withdrawn, can I stop there for a second? The moment the threat is withdrawn, it's like I rely upon God when life hits me out of my normal. It's when your spouse tells you, I'm leaving you. When his boss tells you, if you don't get your act together. It's when your parents tell you, yeah, you got to stop. It's something clicks and you say, okay, I'll work less, or I'll listen better, or I'll control my tongue better, or I'm going to work harder, I'm going to be more diligent, or I'm going to be more faithful. And you do that for a little while, but the moment the threat is withdrawn, we find ourselves slowly drifting back into our old normal. And friends, this is what I'm most concerned about as we plan to resume in-person gatherings and we reopen community. When you use this type of language, it's not that we're going to be renewed or redeemed or rescued or recalibrated. We're going to revert back to those old normals because the threat is gone. And we withdraw and we revert. This is how he finishes it. He says this, my whole nature, the moment the threat is withdrawn, my whole nature leaps back to the toys. God has had me but for 48 hours, and then only by debt of taking everything else away from him. But let him sheathe that sword for a moment, and I believe that I behave like a puppy, that when the hated bath is over, everyone knows what this is like. That puppy shakes himself as dry as he can, and then he races off to reacquire his comfortable dirtiness, if not in the nearest manure heap, at least in the nearest flower bed. See, the moment the threat is gone, we behave like puppies just washed, racing off to get dirty again. See, the rabbit, it might have been a duck for a second, for 48 hours, and we responded to leaning into God, trusting him, even with all of those constants that we had relied upon, how we're stripped away in this kind of weird 10-week season of our life. And we were dependent upon God in the chaos, but then slowly, as things return back to normal, the duck slowly goes back into a rabbit again. That's what's at risk when it comes to the pandemic. Perhaps you started seeking God for the very first time in a long time over the last several weeks. Here's my encouragement to you. Don't go back. Don't go back. Perhaps you spend a lot of time with your wife and your kids instead of being addicted to work. Don't go back. Perhaps you've rested as a family instead of rushing and hurrying from one event and one activity to the next, to the next, to the next. Don't go back. Because at first glance, the story of Ruth seems to be these commitments to these constants of life, like family and hard work and karma and duty. But when we hear this story, we can't miss the foundation and the confusion. That in the chaos, Ruth didn't commit to any of these constants that we listed above. But she totally committed herself to the only constant. Take a look all the way back in chapter 1, verses 15 and 16. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Here it is, you ready? Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. She didn't put family first. Ruth left her family in Moab to go follow the God of her mother-in-law. She didn't commit to a hard work ethic. She took a risk by going out into a field, devoting herself to caring for a mother-in-law that she had no responsibility to care for. It was because she was won over by the God of this family. Ruth wasn't simply a recipient of karma. She was a recipient of Boaz, committing to his constant, to God, to being a man of God, a man of compassion for a widow, not even just a widow, a foreigner, an immigrant. To look at her in the same way that God looks at strangers living in a foreign land. And Boaz didn't simply do his duty. This wasn't his duty. The guardian redeemer was for Elimelech's brother. Boaz isn't his brother. There's actually another relative closer to him. He could have totally said, yeah, let that guy take care of it. But he doesn't. He goes above and beyond that. He doesn't just follow the letter of the law. He follows the spirit of the law because he knows the person behind the law, and that's who he's committed to. It isn't family or hard work or some karma-like mysticism of fulfilling your duty that will give you clarity in the chaos. No. It's the only constant in every age, in every stage of human history. It's following the God of creation. The God who breathed this world into existence, the creator who entered into his creation and said, let me unveil to you and reveal to you who I am, who God is, and that I didn't just create the world, but I'm going to recreate you once again. You see, when you are confused in the chaos, commit to the constant. That's my message for you today. When you're confused in the chaos, commit to the constant. Maybe you got to move from rabbit to duck today. Like maybe that's you. And maybe you've had these constants in your life totally disrupted because of the chaos around you. Take a step. Commit to Jesus. Commit to the God of creation. Commit to the only constant thing that has been constant day after day, week after week, month after month, and decade after decade, and millennium after millennium. Commit to the constant of our Creator God. Maybe you've realized that you've relied too much on hard work and duty to give you value and significance and worth in your life, and it was stripped away, and you felt at a loss. Repent. Commit to the constant of God, who says you have value and worth, not because of anything that you have done, but because of what I have done for you. I paid it all. I gave up everything. I sacrificed myself for you. Commit to the constant of God. Maybe you've expected life to work out for you because you're a good person, but that's simply not happened. Commit to the constant of God, knowing that He doesn't keep bad stuff from happening to you, but that God, He doesn't keep bad things from happening to you, but He joins you and He walks with you in every bad thing and every good thing, allowing you and helping you be transformed into the best version of yourself. You see, God doesn't let bad things happen to good people. No. God actually allowed the worst possible thing to happen to the best possible person by putting Jesus, the perfect Son, the perfect created, begotten entity that's ever existed, to go to the cross and die for you. So when you're confused in the chaos, commit to the constant of God. Throughout this whole story, Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, they don't commit to these weird proverbs that we have in our culture. No. Each of them in their own way commit to the constant of God. And God, working the night shift behind the scenes in the dark where no one's looking, He intertwines their stories together to bring about something beautiful. You see, Naomi doesn't just have a son to carry on her family line and her family, Elimelech, his name. No, she has a son named Obed, who has a son named Jesse, who has a son named David, who becomes king of his nation. And David has a kid, who has another kid, who has another kid, generation after generation, until finally another woman, confused in the chaos, says, I am your servant, to her God. And she bears a child and gives birth to another son, and his name is Jesus. And Jesus lived a perfect life, grew up to become a man, got up on a cross. He died for your sin. He rose again to give you new life. And he invites you today, at this moment, right now. In the chaos around you, in the storm, in whatever boat you're sitting in. He says, come, follow me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You will find rest for your soul, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So when you're confused in the chaos today, commit to the constant. And I guarantee you, that rabbit, that's gonna become a duck.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, oh, mending every heart. So I worship you, yeah. I worship you, yeah. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh yeah, sing that again. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. It's who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Yes. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. You're my constant. That is who you are. 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 Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I can't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop I know. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop I believe. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, no. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. I believe that God is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Hey. Oh, that is who you are. 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 I know that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, it's who you are, God. It's who you are. 'Cause even in the middle of the storm, I know you were sure. 'Cause that is who you are. That is who you are.
Hi, CH Kids. It's Miss Ann. Today we learn from the life of Ruth that when we are confused in the chaos, we should commit to the constant. This means that when things don't go the way we expect, life is kind of crazy and things are always changing, we should stick with God. He's our constant. He'll never change. In fact, we should stick with God even when things are going good. We should follow Him no matter what. Have you ever played a game of Jenga? As you remove pieces, it makes a tower more and more unstable until it eventually falls. It's stronger when all the pieces are together or when the remaining pieces are in the right place. If we look to anyone or anything else other than God to keep us steady, our life will eventually fall apart. So even though we have great people and great things in our life, that's not what we should rely on to make us and keep us strong. Because people make mistakes. They'll fail us, just like we make mistakes, and we'll disappoint them too. And situations aren't always reliable either, like school or sports or VBS or things that we love and are good, but are just things that we can't always count on. So if we're expecting other people or situations to make us strong are going to eventually crumble. And it doesn't matter how good you are, life is still going to be hard sometimes. We can have hope, strength, and peace when things are crazy because of how good God is. He is constant. You can't move him. 1 Samuel 2:2 says, "There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God." And we know that everything in the Bible is true because God does not lie. His word is true, and you never have to wonder if God will be faithful and constant because he will be. He is our rock. And no matter what happens to us that changes our entire world or even just changes our plans for this summer, our rock will hold our hearts, our minds, and our souls steady as we trust in him and look to him for help. Families, you have a couple of options for your activity this week. If you have a Jenga game, play that together and talk about how God is the only one who can never be moved and will never change. Or you can go on a rock hunt and look for some cool rocks and maybe even paint some to keep in your yard. Then pray together and thank God for being our rock, our constant. And be sure to check out chjoplin.org/kids for our weekly mini services for children and resources that will help your family focus on Jesus. Bye.
Everybody, thank you so much for engaging our service with us today. We hope that wherever you are, whomever you're with, or whatever time of day it is, that you have been blessed and learning more about how God is a constant in our lives. If you'd like to talk to anybody, maybe something's been going on in your life, you just want to chat through with somebody, you can text the word talk to this number, and we've got somebody that'll be there to be able to kind of chat with you and talk about what's going on in your life. Maybe you're looking for some connections and some community. We have a Facebook group just to be able to connect with people. And so again, that same number there, just text the word Facebook to that number. Or maybe this is your first time to engage with College Heights. You'd like to know more about our church and what we're doing and who we're about. You can text welcome to that same number that's there. So text for a conversation, Facebook for a group, and then welcome to find out more about who we are as a church. Thank you so much for engaging with us in this way. It's awesome to be able to do this together, but I can't wait till we'll be able to worship together hopefully soon.